Oh, Excelsior's on.
Called me.
Yeah, it's because you.
Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minded blood destruction, sorcerer of death and destruction. The body burning as the war machine keeps turning. Poisoning their brainwashed mind. Oh,
Mark and Cora,
Hello.
Joel,
how are you guys?
Well, thank you. How are you?
we're very well, thank you, my friend.
Doing good. Thank you for joining me on this live show here on the Unwitness channel. We've come together to talk about a very serious topic here happening in the XJW community.
We're getting a lot of feedback. We're hearing ourselves.
You're hearing yourselves?
Yeah. Maybe I need to take that off. Is that better? Yay! Is that
All
better?
right.
I think I don't hear myself anymore. That's much better.
Excellent.
Very cool, love. Well done.
I know, I'm clever.
That's good.
So I wish we were coming together for something a little bit of a, I don't know, a happier subject, but there's something that needs to be talked about.
Yes.
Yes, there is. Yeah, it's been a long time. It's taken. We didn't want to be here.
No.
Doing this. We didn't want to be talking about this particular subject in this. It's not our style. It really isn't.
Well,
and
where would you rather be, Mark?
yeah. Well, talking to you, Joel, is always a pleasure, my friend. Always with your dulcet tones.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm sounding a bit gay there.
Enough of that, boys. Enough of that. No, I think the reason why we decided to say something now, and it's down to our daughter. She's 12 and she's in her first year of senior school. Yeah. Which is I'm not sure what you call it over there. It's secondary school anyway. And she is being bullied at the moment at school. And the problem we had was when she said, "I don't know what to do, Mum," and we said, "Go to the teacher, bring the subject up, get it out in the open." And she said, "Well, I can handle it." I said, "You may be able to handle it, sweet pea, but if they're doing it to you, they're going to continue to do it to other people." Yeah. So she said, "That's very true, Mum." I said, "So you need to be a voice for those people that may not be able to take it like you can." So we had thought about that a little bit more, and it just so happened that we've been in a similar situation watching something now for quite a few years and not saying anything and keeping quiet. But a couple of things that have happened just recently have made us think, do you know what? how can we give our daughter that sort of advice when we're not taking that advice ourselves? So hence why we're here today.
It became very glaring in the end,
Gotcha.
giving her the advice to a 12-year-old girl. And the school are taking it very seriously. They're getting on with it. They're analysing it now. They're sorting it out. And it suddenly made us realise that we had an issue right in front of us that we've been dealing with now for a very long time. And so there was a need to discuss it. And it's about time we did.
You know, and coming from our background, from the Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm sure you would readily agree with me that when there is an issue with somebody in the congregation, it's always very hush-hush. Everybody is very quick to want to sweep it under the carpet. Don't talk about it. The elders will handle it. And pretend like it doesn't exist. But, you know, in the real world, when you've got someone going around, the name of the game is name them and shame them. That's how the real world works when you have someone who's displaying outrageous behavior.
Yeah, and that's the point you're saying about the fact that when you look at the cliques that used to belong in each congregation, if you were even mentioning something against someone that was considered a popular family or a popular person within that congregation, you would then be considered you'd be pushed to the outside, regardless if you had a valid point and everybody felt the same way. And in fact, I've just done a video with Sheena Theakston, who's just resigned from the Watchtower. Kane was the chap that we did, the brother that we did, who did the Judicial Committee hearing. And she's just, something's been bothering her for years, and she's carried a bullying thing that went on with a sister in the congregation, a very popular elder's wife. And we talked about it on a video, which we've got to put up on the YouTube channel, which we shall be doing. Just getting round to it, so busy. But yeah, so the same thing, she's had to put up with that. So now she's awake and out. I said to her, you do realise you don't have to put up with that anymore. You're under no one's rulings here. If you have something to say, say it. And you'll feel healing in that way.
You guys have been out of the Jehovah's Witnesses since 2011, and you've been doing the activism thing since 2012. Mark, you were recently vice president of AAWA. Can you tell me about that experience?
I mean, do you want me to get straight into that particular part of it? I mean, we can talk about that right now. It's
okay, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Let's just go with that particular part. Let's jump straight in there.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
If we cut to the chase, the reason we're here is to talk about an individual by the name of John Cedars. We'll use his pseudonym. That's not his real name, but we'll use his pseudonym. Now, for those that are going to get upset by this because we've dared to mention the name, have a think deep inside your souls as to why we would bring this up. If you know us, you'll understand this is an attack as such on this individual, but it is to actually expose exactly what's going on here. Now, with the whole hour thing, if I might as well just cut straight into this chapter and just go straight for it, if that's okay with you, Joel. You are happy?
Sure. Yeah, it's very pertinent what we're talking about. So
yeah, I mean, I could talk about this particular subject all night, but if we just cut to the chase, the AAWA is a registered charity. Okay, now what that means is that it has a legally established board with names that are legally established within it, and it is a business. And I've had in the past individuals saying, why are you involved with business, Mark? But they didn't understand the concept of what a charity is. It is a business. All charities are businesses.
And when you said that was taken out of context. And
it was taken completely out of context and made to make me look as if I was in some sort of money-making scheme.
Corporation of some sort.
And they took it completely out of context. It is a business. Every charity is. So as vice president, I was involved from time to time in making decisions or discussing things within the board, which is a private concept for looking at all of those different areas of attributes, risk analysis, plans for the future, things that we need to actually deal with, statements, all those type of things when we actually got the opportunity to do so, which wasn't that often. But the boardroom was really just something that we had on a private email system where you could put something in there, and it might take days before you get an answer from everybody because they're on holiday, they're all sorts. But it was a private and confidential boardroom. And it needed to be, because there were things that might need to be said where sometimes we might agree with each other, sometimes we might not. But the important thing was you have to air these things. Now, of course, on this particular issue, where Mr. John Cedars has decided to repeatedly, even yesterday, I can gather, has been saying now to the world that Mark Latham was outed. He had stabbed me in the back.
No, it's outed as a Cedar hater.
Oh, I'm a Cedar hater. We'll
Yeah.
come back to his use
I
of
want to come back to that.
categorizations in a minute. Remember that one.
I will.
But going back to this, I was outed apparently, and that I had this agenda against him. Of course, because I'm a Christian, apparently I've got an agenda. That was brought up as well.
Well, apparently, I mean, if he's to be believed, there's an international conspiracy headed by a couple in New Mexico. That I think even yesterday I was watching, there was comments on his Facebook where he continues to blame Mike and Kim, he blames their influence over you guys for this situation.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It's absolutely fascinating. This is where the delusion has really kicked in on this, and this is why we're here, because we've been forced into this position by this individual. Well, anyway, getting back to
it's only fair. I mean, at this point, you guys are having your names dragged through the mud, and
yes.
There's a certain point where there's enough is enough.
Yeah, I mean, the whole debacle surrounding this is extremely unjust. What's happened? But there you go.
Let's jump right into this. So we were talking about private email there. This was all kicked off, from my understanding, when John Cedars did his Crisis of Conscience giveaway, and stop me if I don't have a good grip on the situation. But basically, you sent a very private internal email to a friend of yours, a colleague of yours at AAWA, and you said, because you guys are affiliated, AAWA is affiliated with John Cedars, correct?
Well, the email was a boardroom discussion.
Started by the president.
It's called a boardroom discussion. So it's a select few people that would be privy to that discussion because it's a boardroom. And
so you weren't writing him as a friend. You were writing him in a professional manner with a
yes.
legitimate.
I was writing to I was raising a question with the owner of JW Survey, which isn't John Cedars, or it wasn't at that time. I was writing to the owner of JW Survey, who was a senior officer of the AAWA, and also looked after the websites of the AAWA as well. Now, when John Cedars decided to completely fly off the handle and decide to start printing copies in Romania of the Crisis of Conscience book,
with his logo slapped on the back,
on a YouTube channel, and waving at everybody, saying that this is what we're now doing, we all saw straight away, those that had enough nous, that this was a total illegal act. Okay, there's no mincing around with this. Regardless of his so-called justifications for it, this is a total illegal act. Now, going back to the owner of JW Survey, as a senior officer of the AAWA, I raised a question with him. Do you think it's appropriate, and I won't mention his name, we'll call him Mr. X. Do you think it's appropriate, Mr. X, that this individual, John Cedars, who's now willfully infringing copyright of the Book of Books, of all books, Crisis of Conscience, on your website, do you think it's about time you got him, or you repudiated exactly what he's doing? Because this is an illegal act. Because if we don't go down that road, you are a senior officer of the AAWA, and therefore, by definition, people will start to raise questions as to the credibility and reputations of the people that run AAWA. There is where my question, is it bad for business? Yes. Is this guy toxic in what he's doing? Yes, absolutely. And under those contexts of what he was doing, acting illegally like he was, I was fully within my rights as vice president of the AAWA to raise the question with the website holder, do you think you ought to repudiate the actions of this guy that's running your website? Because otherwise you're going to be in a lot of hot water in the future if this is pursued legally, and therefore other people could then start to see that the reputation of AAWA is connected to this mess. There lies the substance of exactly what happened. Now, what happened next? Yeah, carry on,
You
Joe.
can't rule out the possibility that with as big and powerful as Watchtower Corporation still is, that they would capitalize on a situation like this to make AAWA look bad.
Exactly,
You can't
exactly.
discount that.
Exactly.
Who knows these days? Who knows exactly where they're acting and what? It's a multi-billion-dollar organization. I mean, I know from my previous role within the trade union world that I did for 10 years that there are companies out there that are expert, that are paid to infiltrate organizations, and they're called, you can Google it, union busters. They specialize in being able to come in, infiltrate, look legitimate, conquer and divide, and smear, do whatever they need to do to get the job done. And that's exactly what happens. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's happened here, but the potential for it is extremely real. And there are lots of questions that have never been answered as a result of what happened that day. But I did ask the website holder, after he says he accidentally sent this stuff to John Cedars, who incidentally is one of his best mates.
So you're telling me this private email that you were sending to a colleague of yours, it didn't take any time flat for it to end up in Lord Farquaad, John Cedars' lap.
It was like that. It was almost like it was blind copied in.
Yeah.
The excuse given was that that this particular boardroom member was grabbing names of the email to forward on a reply. Well, we all know that when you're in a boardroom chat on email, all you have to do is reply all, because all the people that are in that chat to begin with are listed in the reply all.
No, that's a very cheap cop-out. You don't accidentally email somebody something these days.
I don't know.
Accidentally do that.
I don't know where it says Muggins on here, but I don't accept that, and I'm not computer savvy the best of times, and a lot of people know that.
So you're telling me that somebody who runs multiple websites, their stories that they accidentally emailed John Cedars this private.
I think he's been copied in all the time. That's my personal feelings.
So in no time flat, a couple of within a very short period of time,
an hour or so,
you're seeing this show up on John Cedars' Facebook page.
Yeah. Chopped, so that the original first part of the discussion, which was started by the president, was chopped out. She also made points about that, and that's why she brought it to the attention of the board.
There was selected issues.
Mark agreed with it and carried on saying.
So he felt bold enough to post parts of this email on their Facebook, knowing that you guys would see it, but he didn't have enough courage to call you guys out at that point?
No. So people that say, why don't you go to sort of this person in private about this, he when he wants to out somebody or he wants to do something and cause trouble, he doesn't go private to that person and sort it out. He goes straight to the public.
Oh, this was a full out plain,
he's wanted to do this for a long. You could tell by the fact he did that this was something he's wanted to do for a long time.
He's been itching for it a long time. But anyway, so he did this. He put that out there, and he was very selective in what he actually did put out there. And it was all designed to actually make me look an absolute idiot, and that I was basically just trying to destroy him, which couldn't be further from the truth. I was raising legitimate questions about making sure the AAWA was protected from any connections of illegal activity, regardless of who it was.
What's interesting is on his Facebook page recently, when he was describing Mark and I, he actually said, now I'm going to come back to the point where he said outed. He said, the couple that were outed as Cedars haters in the whole manufactured copyright fiasco. Where he thinks it was manufactured from, I have not got a clue. Apart from the fact that he actually stood there on a YouTube video with a copy of the Crisis Conscience bootleg copy, thinking it was okay to slap his logo on, and somehow that's manufactured.
By us.
He's just counting on the fact that I think most people aren't going to really look into it much past the surface, and he thinks he can put a little bit of a spin on it, and just the masses are going to buy it.
Yeah.
But what I found remarkable, though, Joel, with that is the amount of people that were saying, but he's doing a good thing. And we had, I don't know how many emails I went through saying, but that's totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's not about whether or not he's doing a good thing or a bad thing. It's illegal.
It's illegal.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not doing this live broadcast simply because of that email. There's a lot more to this story, and it only gets worse. So this is part one of showing the character, establishing the character of what John Cedars thought was appropriate, and then also it calls into question the character of certain people at AAWA in my mind as well. And like you said, where's their credibility at this point? If they can't keep something under their lid, if they can't keep something secret, this also shows you that John Cedars can't keep things confidential either. So why would anybody ever want to go to him with information when he you know, when he has been proven that he'll just go and toot his
He'll
horn
blast you. He'll
at the
blast you.
first
If you
possible,
upset
you know.
him, he'll blast you, and he'll do, because he's not interested. I mean, I've got a list here of things. I did some research on this. What I believe is, if you look at the sadistic, narcissistic bully, okay, now is he one of those?
Well, I mean,
Google,
let's read the definition and let's see if he fits the definition.
right. Well, this is the definition. Lacks empathy for others, has low degree of anxiety about the consequences. Well, that's exactly what happened over this, his choosing to so-called out me. There is a narcissistic need to feel omnipotent, which is talking about having great power, needing that power. His views, and it's all he's obsessed with it. His subscribers, getting his views. That's all he's ever worried about.
I'm going to come back to that.
Yeah. He may appear to have a high self-esteem, but it is actually a brittle narcissism. A serial bully, an individual who repeatedly intimidates or harasses one individual after another. A victim is selected and bullied for an extended period of time until he or she leaves. Once the victim is out of the way, the bully usually needs to find a new victim. This is because the bully needs someone or on whom he can protect his inner feelings of inadequacy. The bully may prevent others from sharing negative information about him by sowing conflict. Interesting. When you look at that particularly, he ticks those boxes, and there's bells on top of it. Now, this whole thing about him outing me, the guy that did it says and keeps pleading that it was an accident, and yet his best friend says, I was given this. It was.
Yeah, no, there's no way that was an accident. We're talking about if he has a capability of running multiple websites, obviously he's savvy enough with technology to not accidentally send a confidential email out to the person who it coincidentally was about in the first place. I don't buy that.
No. But the important thing here, Joel, is, you know, all we needed from him, from the website owner, to recalibrate people's thinking, because this was a major cock-up. Regardless of whether it's deliberate or not, he did it in a bad mood, whatever, I still had the professional head on to say to him in an 8-page document back to him, and I put a lot of stuff in there, that the way to recalibrate this and get this back on track is quite simple. Repudiate the actions of this illegal act that's going on your website and apologize publicly for releasing it out of the boardroom. He refused to do that.
Wait a minute. Okay. So this is new information. So you're telling me that, you know, you didn't just go down this road of, hey, let's do a live broadcast and out John Cedars all over YouTube, but you went to the parties involved and you gave them a way out first before it came to this. Let's just make that clear right now.
Oh, absolutely. I've got it all in writing.
December and now we're March.
Yeah, I did it all in writing, and I said, look,
months?
you just recalibrate this, just publicly apologize, and this can go away, because this all it has to do is people need just to understand exactly what's happened here, because this individual, John Cedars, is now ranting and raving, going off like a raging animal, like a rabid animal, talking about things which are totally inaccurate. But one of his best buddies, who's the owner of the site, refused to do it, quite simply because he was obviously either intimidated or he just couldn't be asked. One of them is, you know.
You know, the way I see it is we did not escape the Watchtower. We didn't escape these Lilliputians known as elders going around micromanaging everyone's lives. We didn't escape that kind of totalitarian environment to speak up against the Watchtower. And just to go ahead and have that same kind of elder mentality among us. But furthermore, it's not just the mentality. It's not just how he talks to people, but apparently he's a backstabber as well. And you're, Mark, you're guilty of telling half-truths, apparently. Can you?
Apparently.
Yeah. Can you explain his accusation of you dealing in half-truths that had the end result of a journalist passing you up who was investigating the pedophile situation with the Watchtower? Can you go into that and explain this?
Well, that actually wasn't involving him so much. I mean, that was one of his other best buddies.
The one
Oh,
helping
I'm sorry.
him,
Okay.
Yeah, no, that was
Yeah.
the one helping him advertise the Crisis of Conscience giveaway.
Yeah.
Stood there nodding his head.
Shaking, endorsing.
Because
Absolutely
I
endorsing
like
it.
everybody else, you know, it's like you guys, this has been your, I don't know everything, so this is
No,
Yeah,
no,
you
no, I
don't.
appreciate
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
Joel.
so
No,
please
it's-
definitely set us
yeah.
straight here with what's been happening here.
Well, we've been in contact, as you know, here in the United Kingdom. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it all started back when Mark, the audit of file information was received.
Yeah.
And Mark sat there for a few weeks looking at this sheet of paper with all of this information on. And he suddenly said to me, this is absolutely outrageous. And so he decided to do a video on it in November, I think.
Yeah.
And so he read out the audit of file for word of what it actually said. He didn't put any added words. He just said, break that down and look at that in detail. And it was all about the same time as the Goddard inquiry was coming out in this country with regards to investigating the Watchtower. And they actually put out, can you hear me? Put out another letter telling everybody that no information regarding child abuse was to be destroyed, including minutes, little notes, correspondence,
Literally
meetings,
anything connected.
even if it's written down on a piece of rough paper, nothing was to be destroyed, but all kept because she wanted it all kept. So regardless of whether this information was to be destroyed on an audit type of situation every year, and that this was something the elders do every year, this was news to Joe Public, the average member of the congregation that's the sheep, wouldn't have known about this audit of file. Only the elders were privy to it. So this is all news to all of us lot thinking, hang on a minute, and you've got the Goddard inquiry saying these. Now the Watchtower's excuse was that the information is destroyed because it goes in line with data protection. And as somebody from the government said in this country on a BBC4 programme,
which one of our activists
actually took it forward and
was actually in that interview as well,
said, if that's true, data protection is there for protecting data, not destroying data.
It was a top lawyer and was making it clear that data protection cannot be used as an excuse for destroying evidence or correspondence in cases like this. So that can't be used as an excuse, and that was one of the top lawyers in this country that was
so anyway, at the time of this, when Mark first did the video, we were contacted by Trey Bundy, quite a few different people, and including this person who ended up going back to the journalist, for a copy of this audit file letter. So we sent it out to loads of people that wanted it, and we heard nothing back. The next thing we know is there's this journalist wanting to contact Mark to find out more about this information. So Mark's in dialogue with this journalist, and it's going on and on and on. And all of a sudden, nothing. And then it comes to our attention that this journalist has been sent an email from this person endorsing the book with John Cedars on his site, that this person comes forward to the journalist saying that they wouldn't surprise them if wouldn't blame her if this person decided to drop it because it's too complicated.
Cult stuff.
No, sect stuff.
Yes.
So how about we call this person Mr. H? Let's just say Mr. H.
Okay.
So you're saying, okay, so thanks for clarifying that too. It's just been a really, this is my Friday, by the way, and I've worked 60 hours. I'm done. This is my Friday night, and so I've got my cup of coffee, and I'm
more coffee.
I'm as sharp as I'm going to get right now. So so we're going to say Mr. H actually told a journalist that it's not worth it. You might. And
that Mark was telling half-truths and being unfair to Watchtower.
I was being unfair to Watchtower.
Yeah.
Unfair
to Watchtower.
How are you unfair to Watchtower by telling the truth? Where did you?
How dare you read and audit a file, and that they could only go on absolute perfect evidence and substantiated evidence because otherwise it would let down SAS, AWWA, AAWA, and Open Minds, which is a new foundation.
So what he was doing was actually amalgamating when I saw this email that had been sent to the journalist to scupper any activity between an activist and the journalist. Once I had that, in there were details about how they had to let me go. They let me go.
Mark resigned.
I resigned from the AAWA, but in this was a lie saying that they had to let me go. Also, that I was emotional.
So they were using that. They were basically scapegoating you.
Yes. Yes. It was a blatant lie all the way through. It was shocking, to be honest with you. But, you know, you can put up with those things, because if you're going to put yourself out there, that's sometimes you get this type of saboteur type atmosphere that happens. Well, what I found really hard to understand was that this individual was stopping a journalist from speaking to an activist. That's a cardinal sin. You don't do that.
The end result of that is the Watchtower wins. What kind of an activist are you calling yourself if you're assisting the enemy? You're giving aid to the enemy.
Yeah.
It's called a collaborator.
But the funny thing is, after that happened, a lot of the activists here in the UK decided to take up the mantra of this audit file and decided to take that along with the Goddard letter into Kingdom Halls to show the elders.
Good.
Another activist got an interview with the BBC4 programme where there were lawyers, governmental lawyers on there, actually saying if this is true, the Watchtower have got a lot to answer for.
Now, what happens next is this is interesting, because there's a bit of technical detail about the activities of activism. Is that you had lawyers, you've got police, you've got high court lawyers, all saying the same thing, that they know this evidence goes missing, it gets destroyed, especially when it's brought before a court or when CPS is looking. It all goes missing, and yet here we have an individual saying, I wasn't being quite fair to Watchtower. I have yet to see one case, one child abuse case that's gone to court anywhere in the world where the Watchtower has cooperated and brought forward a plethora of information that they've got on file over it that wasn't unearthed by other people. It doesn't happen. It never has happened. And now we have this audit of files saying, destroy it all. Get rid of everything.
Now, the interesting thing is that there's something that came up that for some reason that Mark, you were called emotional.
I was called emotional.
And
I get very emotional when I watch Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Good film. But now you can be passionate, you can have emotion, but there's one thing that we do in our activism work is we always have a clear head, and we don't let those emotions, especially in a professional way, overtake. And it's interesting how we never go off anything unless we have evidence. We won't just read something half-heartedly and then think, well, because what we don't want to do is bring something out that's not factual and then it fall flat. Well, this is factual. We have all the evidence, the written evidence and everything.
You guys have kept all the email exchanges.
Yeah,
you have
we've
all
kept everything, everything. We've got everything. And when it came to the audit of file evidence, there's a lot more to come out about that. But it's just interesting how now people are actually realising that that was actually something valid, and it was actually brought up later on as something that AAWA would want to look into. And I believe that there is other activists looking into it even deeper than we have touched on. Yeah. But the point is, we should be working together on it, not trying to stop people from talking.
Where do you think the half-truth accusation came from? Do you think he was referring to the crisis of conscience situation? Was he trying to equate those two things?
Well, these two are best buddies. I mean, you've seen them on videos together.
I've heard that Mr. H bought John Cedars a car. I mean, I've heard.
I understand. I understand that's the case. He's been given, and he furnishes his house. He does all sorts of things. Fine, that's not a problem. That's not a criticism. But what
basically
we're saying
is that they're very close together.
They are very,
Which
very
is not
close.
a problem. There's
not
no
a
problem in that, and that's fair play. If they want to do that and help each other,
that's
fine.
entirely up to them.
But that's not that. What we're saying is the fact that we would then somebody tried to convince us that that the relationship that these two people had wasn't as close as it was making out. That it was because this Mr. H was actually in it because of Mr. Cedars' wife. When actually, well, no, it doesn't matter.
But you know what? In the email, itself from Mr. H, he says, please, if you want to get any more information, we refer you to JW Survey.
As a reliable source.
Because he's a good friend of mine.
But then you've got
let me get this straight. So he basically, he throws you under the bus, and then he says, well, if you want a reliable source, go to JW.
Yeah, go there.
Go to JW. And do you know what happened next, Joel?
Tell me.
Nothing. Nothing happened next. So where did that journalist go? I don't know. I didn't see anything in the press. I didn't see any activity as a result of that. I didn't see anything. It died.
Well, congratulations, Mr. H, because you just helped protect pedophiles within the Watchtower by extension.
Scary, isn't it? Scary. And it goes on different levels.
That just makes me angry. I mean, it would make anybody who's been involved in any of this fuming angry.
Yeah. And when we've had comments, well, Mark, you look a bit angry. Yes, because do you know when activists get a journalist?
Please, you guys look angry, but nobody, up until this point, when you guys are, laying everything on the table, nobody's known the full story.
No.
What they have seen is they've seen one side of the story so far. They've seen what John Cedars has had to say about you guys in the situation, and now this is your opportunity to come out and really set things straight.
Yeah.
We may look as if we're angry, but actually it's more about the fact of what we see going on behind the scenes that no one else sees. You see, he's very brilliant, absolutely brilliant when he does his videos, but he's extremely flawed as well when it comes to human contact and that one-to-one issue. I remember when he did a post on his Facebook page about apologising that he wasn't going to be able to get to anybody's emails to reply because he's far too busy with everything. Fine, we know that feeling, we're the same. But then when he did the Crisis of Conscience giveaway, underneath his video, one of the things he said was, you have to be a subscriber to get this free copy, this giveaway one. You have to be a subscriber to me and put underneath why you feel you deserve the free copy of the Crisis of Conscience. And he then said underneath, made a comment that I've noticed that out of the 174 or so people, only 64 of you are subscribers. Now, if you've got time to sit there and work out who's a subscriber and who isn't, I would have thought that actually it's the ones that aren't subscribing, and it's those Jehovah's Witnesses that are supposedly waking up that need that book more than anything. So I wouldn't worry if it was me that person's a subscriber or not. To me, that made a very good point, that he's actually more interested in his numbers than he is the people behind those numbers. So it's little things that we've observed for a long time now, and that make up a bigger picture. And it might seem nothing, but when you put it all together, it suddenly makes you realise that, well, actually, numbers aren't important to us. We couldn't, if we had one person, when we're doing a video, if we had one person through that video, that's amazing. Sure. If you get a million people that hate it, it's worth it for that one person that it helped, and that's it. And
the end result of this kind of behavior, when you guys put so much, I know you have your own business, you're very busy people, you do the activism in your spare time, and when you see people actively derailing your efforts, that's discouraging. And I know that there have been, I know of 2 activists that he has been responsible for discouraging, that people away that don't want to have anything to do with activism now because of their encounters with John Cedars. And you guys said that you're aware of far more people than just 2.
At least 6 or 8 off the top of my head. I think there might be more than that. These were activists, by the way.
What's interesting is we when we put the post on our Facebook page about the Charities Commission, before we did a video, we had a private message come through on Facebook from somebody who I haven't spoken to for a very long time, and they said, could I ask, is this person you're referring to by his real name, but John Cedars? And we said, yes, it is. And they said, I want to cry right now, because this person actually bullied me in a conversation, and it was something very trivial, but he came back and hammered this person to the point where they came off away from the UK site that we have on Facebook and all of this, because of the fact that she felt she couldn't come to people like Mark and I or other YouTubers that were out there putting their face out there, for us to be blocking her the same way and reacting the same way as this John Cedars did. And we thought, hang on a minute, this is awful, the fact this person has gone silent for so long because of the way that she was treated in private through that. And she showed us the thingies, yeah, exactly. So we know this is factual. We know what's going on here, and this isn't the first time that this sort of thing has happened. So you get to the point where you think, how many more people are frightened to actually say something? And you go back to the Watchtower, where you're in the Kingdom Halls, and you don't want to say so and so said so and so, or someone's done that and hurt me, because you know the way that it will look on you as an individual, not how it actually reflects on the person that's doing it in the first place. So the moment you are frightened off from saying anything because it may disagree or disagree, whatever, if it disagrees with that person, you get silenced. We have people on our friends list who are diversely different from us, and they have many different viewpoints, and we sometimes agree, a lot of the time we disagree. But the thing we don't do is defriend people or turn away from people.
Well, no, actually, it's
we have
done that.
I've done that to certain people that are nasty.
But this is not about defriending. This is far worse. This is about an individual that will email these individuals and trash them mentally, individually. Will spend time doing it and actually destroy the person mentally. Now, he might not even know he's doing it, but he is doing it, because we're the ones, and we're not the only ones. There are many of us out there that are picking up the pieces of many of these casualties of these moths to the flame, so to speak. They've got too close to him, disagreed with him about one issue, and found themselves being absolutely slaughtered privately. And going back to this sadistic, narcissistic bully, an individual who repeatedly intimidates and harasses one individual after another, a victim is selected and bullied for an extended period of time until he or she leaves with bells on. And we're seeing so many people. This is one of the core reasons that we are discussing this today, because this individual has no qualms with, yes, he just unfriends lots of people. That's the way he works. But it's when he goes on to the next level and actually decides, I'm gonna do you now. I'm gonna give it to you.
For example, when he said about us suddenly being outed as Cedar haters. Okay, this is the point. When have we ever said we're Cedar haters? We think he's brilliant in what he does. We've never ever said anything different. But when you start weighing up the difference between helping a lot of people and then harming few, to me, the harming the few is far more important than the helping of the majority of people, because those vulnerable ones that you're not seeing being hurt, you just see the people being helped. That's more important to me.
He sort of reminds me of a bull in a china shop when it comes to his interactions with XGWs. He doesn't seem to get the fact that, maybe not all, but certainly I'm sure a lot of them, XGWs are dealing with problems in their lives because maybe they've had their entire social circle just ripped away from them, right?
Absolutely.
Just torn away. So maybe they're fragile people.
They're very fragile.
When they work up I don't get it. Why would you want to be harsh towards an XJW? If you're professing to want to help those people, if you're professing to be in the business of helping people get over the cold, move forward, be healthy, and put things in perspective, why would you be abusive towards people like that?
Oh, the voice for the voiceless, really?
It's not, though,
really?
Is it? Because it's like, going back to the Cedar hater bit, though. If my husband or one of my children did something illegal and went to prison for it, or was punished for it, I wouldn't hate them. I would hate what they did, but I wouldn't hate them.
No.
But I wouldn't agree with them just because they're my relatives or they're my husband or my children. I'd be there for them and say to them, "You are completely out of order."
Well, I'm still convinced this is only because he's an atheist and you guys are evangelical Christians, and that this is all about. This is a very carefully orchestrated conspiracy.
Now, careful, because you're an atheist. I'm going to take the complete and utter disagreement to that. Now, at the end of the day, where did that all come from? We've never ever pushed any religious beliefs on anybody, because our own children are atheists. If we're going to have a problem with that side of things, don't you think we start at home?
I can explain that. Do you want to hear my hypothesis on it? Okay. How many times were you at a door and we're out in service, you bang on the door, and maybe the householder brings up something that you don't want to talk about?
Yeah.
What do you do? You ignored it, you changed the subject, you made a counter accusation, and you moved forward and you ignored it like it never was said. And that's exactly what you see happening here. Is the more I watch this guy and I study him like a bug in a jar, the more I see this guy, the more I see watchtower tactic after watchtower tactic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's to scare people away from it, thinking that somehow that's a bad thing, a good thing, whatever. It's just wrong. That's a wrong label. He does like his labels. Watchtower loves labels.
He categorizes things. Have you noticed that? We'll come on to this aggressive activism thing in a minute.
Goodness.
That really
Don't get me started on that.
But he likes to put everybody in a pigeonhole. So you're one of those, and you're one of those, and you must be one of those.
Why can't you be all of them?
But we actually are all of them.
Oh, we are all of them.
When it comes to activism, we do it all.
But
we're quite happy to do the so-called, what he calls aggressive. I don't know where he gets that word from.
No.
But we won't break the law, but we'll go and do things which push the boundaries. And then we'll do the technical stuff as well. So there are no categories. Activism is activism. And I'll tell you what, I am so proud of and privileged to be working with brilliant activists in this country and around the world as well. They are fantastic at what they do, and they put their heart and soul into it, and they're not fearful at all.
A lot of them you don't see.
You don't see.
Doesn't get advertised.
A lot of them write letters. A lot of them are not the ones.
When we get together, it's like we're best friends. I've been, went down to Florida a couple of weeks ago, and I got to meet Bo Jewell, and I've never, and a bunch of other people too that I was.
Fantastic. Lovely, isn't he? Yeah.
And it just seems like we are all on the same team. We all automatically just recognize each other because we have so much in common.
We're all imperfect. We make mistakes every day. I see you guys encouraging others to get out there and be, busy in activism themselves. I see you encouraging others. I don't see you looking for a podium. I try not to look around the room and say, well, where's my podium? I need a podium. I don't do that either. I try to make sure that, I think, what would the Watchtower do? And then I pretty much do the opposite. Because I want to see more videos made. I want to see the vast apostate. We love seeing
art on the Watchtower. I want to see these things happen.
Yeah.
I don't want to make anybody else's job as an activist any more difficult than it already is.
Exactly. When it's a really good point, and the thing is, when we didn't do videos for a while, it's because we were watching so many new videos, and that's fantastic for us because we get built up by that, and it encourages us. And going back to the activism thing, you've got to look at the suffragettes. A lady threw herself in front of a horse and died to get women in this country the right to vote. And people with placards. When Bill Bowen threw teddies and things like Silent Lambs outside made a statement, it got noticed, and it's still going around. Even now, it's historical, and it's a
legendary.
lot of things. So when you look at things like that, you've got to realise that activism has a massive part, and it's not just the 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses that are the ones that we're aiming at. We're aiming at the 8 billion that are not yet fooled into becoming a Jehovah's Witness because they haven't seen both sides. If you're quiet and you say nothing and you do nothing, then somebody might not actually know what's going on. If you're shouting and and you're getting press, fine, good, because press is where people hear about the different sides of the religion. The whitewashed graves that I call Watchtower, that they quite loved to use as a terminology for the Christendom. However, I think they fit that perfectly because on the outside they look, but they're such lovely people, and they, and they're so honest and trustworthy. When you look and peel that back, look underneath and see what it really is. There is so many things like the paedophilia, the shunning, the suicides, the people dying through the lack of blood. When you put it all together, it's awful. And unless we get that information out there, who's going to know?
And people like you are really taking the fight to the Watchtower because you guys have had a large measure of success. I mean, when you get to the point where you're attracting the attention, and this is why to me this is so important, is because if the journalist had engaged you guys and you had been able to have the opportunity to build a relationship with that journalist, who knows where that would have gone? Who knows what other avenues that might have opened up for you guys with your activism and getting the word out against the Watchtower?
That's exactly it, Joel. I mean, when you get to the stage where you're reading something where another activist is actually stopping you from speaking to a journalist, there couldn't be a more deeper insult from one activist to another. You can't get any more insulting than that. And it's not me as an individual that he did that to. It's every activist that wakes up in the morning, who does those emails, that rings people up, that makes posters, that goes out there and talks to JWs on the street. He did that to every one of us, not just to me, to every single one of us. And what's more, he did it to a real disservice to the public.
I'm going to challenge everybody watching this. I'm going to say the same thing that I say to the Jehovah's Witnesses. Prove me wrong. Start paying attention to what this guy says. If I'm completely wrong about him, hey, show me.
Yeah.
Pay attention to what he says. Just be wary of this guy because he's not trustworthy. He's basically, for all intents and purposes, if you can't trust an organization, that's it for him. AAWA, for all intents and purposes, it's been destroyed by John Cedars and his cronies.
Yeah.
Because where's the integrity? Where's the integrity?
Where's the
no
integrity?
Why do you want to pay attention to anything it has to say? Its message becomes its message just becomes nobody's going to listen to them.
No. See, and there was something else I noticed with all of what's gone on with Facebook and everything recently is that a lot of people, if they like or comment to Mark or I about a subject that he isn't approving of, he unfriends them or he blocks them because and what's interesting is watching people's interactions with that is that that's what Watchtower tells you who you can be friends with, who you can't be friends with. You can't talk to other people with other religions. You can't do this. You can't. That's exactly what he does.
Lots
and
lots.
That's
of
what
cunts.
Watchtower does. We've got pagans, Buddhists. We've got a couple of Muslims. We've got atheists, agnostics, Christians. A wide variety of people on our Facebook friends profile, and we think the world of all of them. When we interact with people, we can agree to disagree, and do you know what? It adds spice to our life, actually having all those different conversations. Because if you're just looking at life from one angle, how boring is that? I like all of the colours and I like all of the angles.
It makes a massive mosaic. Do you know one thing, John?
I like to be proved wrong too.
Going back to when we first came on, and I know you're around before us on this. When we first came on and started seeing all of the YouTube community and the activists, it was so vibrant. It was full of colour. It was some really amazing characters of all different belief systems, all having a go, all venting where they're coming from. And it was absolutely wonderful. Do you know what? Slowly but surely, we're watching this dark cloud coming over the horizon, and people are becoming fearful about what they can say, what they can't say, and are they going to get reproved for it? You know, because they've still got the old cult mechanism still working away in there. And there's one individual that seems to be towering above everybody else, who's ready to unfriend people because they've disagreed with something that they've said.
You know, the Unwitness channel, I think I'm about almost 5 years old with this channel. I think I'd have to look back and check. But starting 2009 is when I got introduced to YouTube and started watching everyone. And you're right. I would that's a very fair thing to say, is that the community was very vibrant. You had a lot of different personalities, and you had a lot of people putting their creativity into their videos. And you know, that's still happening, but the XCW community has become, I've never seen it polarized like this before. I've never seen it where there's like a line drawn in the sand where people are just like, you know, back in the day, you used to be able to pretty much say whatever you wanted, and there was little spats and fights and stuff here. But you know, a week or two later, nobody could remember anything that happened. But there's one common denominator here, and now that we see that he's completely untrustworthy, he's put himself, you know, basically we've got a cockroach that's put himself in a very important position here in the XCW community. He's put himself on a pedestal. You know, he one thing I think is a little bit of a conflict of interest here is that John Cedars is a self-described sex addict who is going out and asking people who were victims of sexual abuse to come to him with their story, and I'm not supposed to consider that a conflict of interest?
Exactly.
Way back before this started really blowing up, we tried to be very diplomatic about it, and we were horrified to see him advertising, come to me, all you who are toiling. Bring your stories to me.
I'll make sure it gets
I'll make sure it gets to Jonathan Sanders. And this is what he was doing. And because the delusion that's going on in this man's head, thinking that somehow he was going to have some sort of special providence with with this
Charity
chief
Commission.
with the charity commission, with the chief
That's
investigative
another
officer.
interesting situation here. So my understanding of this is that there was a source, you know, a secret source that he had, that he was making it seem like this was something that only he was privy to. And you're
My contact. My contact.
My contact. Yeah, everything is my thoughts on this, or my thoughts on JW.
Unbelievable.
But you're telling me that this is something that was open to everyone, and he was saying this is my contact?
And what's interesting, we all knew that you could go straight to him, so but we let him get on with it, because how can you say, actually, you know, John, you can't, everybody can go straight to the Charity Commission. They don't need to go through anybody. But you think, well, just let him get on with it. But actually, that was a harmful thing to do, because I had a few people come to me and say, oh, I wish I'd actually gone straight to Jonathan. And we said, you still can. Now, the interesting thing is, we did that video the other day about Charity Commission, and we actually had an email this morning off Jonathan thanking us for it, Jonathan Sanders. So he said, I've watched your latest video, Mark and Cora, and I just want to say thank you very much for your words of encouragement. We will get there together. Yeah. He wants people in the XJW community to send information to him. And he said, I had dozens and dozens of conversations with people. I mean, it's a fantastic email. Loved it. And I thought it was so nice of him to acknowledge that we're not all trying to sabotage what's going on, because until this investigation is finalized, you can't say that it's not going to be worthwhile or it's not going to go anywhere and I'm beating my head up against the wall. And I said to Mark, something interesting crossed my mind. He said in his Facebook page about the Charity Commission how he didn't have a formal response, and he had 15 stories of victims in that 22-page letter that he'd sent to the commission, and he felt it was awful that he hadn't had a formal response. And I said to Mark, I now know why he's going off on Facebook about it, because if he's promised 15 victims that he will get them heard and he will have a response for them, and yet they've just collating evidence and information at the moment, he's got 15 people he's now got to answer to who are saying, well, where's my response, John Cedars? Because he's promised them some kind of response, because he's got a special relationship with the Charity Commission. And
this is where the delusion comes in. This is government. We're talking about a government official who's doing his job within the rules and regulations that he's assigned into. He can't go willy-nilly and start giving preferential treatment to individuals who've got an ego the size of a mountain and actually just say, well, because you're special, I'm going to come and just keep talking. No, it doesn't. It's called a formal response. And that's what he does. And he works that way methodically. He's been very caring. He's been very sensitive.
Well, you know, he wants that formal response so that he can put it on JW's survey and say, look at what I've done.
An exclusive. Yeah. And he's going to do it because and that's the other thing. When you look at the big thing about numbers, we are so small. All of us that do YouTube videos, we have got a small audience really on the YouTube world, because put a video up of a dog laughing or running around a field and falling in a water, or a kid picking his nose and sticking sellotape on his face.
A cat millions of airdrop gets 25,000 views. I mean,
exactly. So we're nothing. We are all really nothing in this YouTube world.
Here's what I want to see. We got to wrap this up in a minute, because I'm going to have to go in a minute. But you know, we want peace in the XJW community. We want a free flow of information. John Cedars, look, I don't know if you people watching this realize this or not. You might think that I just had this giant axe to grind, but I used to be friends with John Cedars, and he asked me twice if I would write for JW's survey. So I'm not coming. I'm just saying, please understand that he's earned this at this point. This video where we're speaking out and standing up to this guy that we've identified in our midst as a bully, as an abuser, someone who's just, you know, undermining the efforts of other activists, pushing other activists out, and trying to claim as much of the spotlight for himself and for his own personal glory as possible. Look, that's not something I want to, that's not somebody who I would be friends with in the real life, number one, because that's just like, you know, how could I compete with that? But that's not something that the XJW community at large needs in their midst, because that's a toxic entity. And if we're going to allow that kind of he's going to go off and he's going to do whatever he wants, right? This video is not designed to make him stop doing what he's doing.
No. Because he does good work in that side of it, and
we have to at least stand up and speak our minds and identify this guy and put a label on him. Otherwise, we're hypocrites and we're no better, and we might as well just go back to the Kingdom Hall.
Yeah, I believe he comes with a health warning. But one of the other important points to bring out, and you're absolutely right in what you just said, Joel, is that there are many delicately constituted people that come out of the cult watchtower. They are very, very fragile. Some of them, they might not look it, but they are extremely fragile. And they see his slick website, they see the work he does, which is brilliant. And then they get to know him. And if he turns on them like on a sixpence, he can destroy these people very quickly. A lot of them never come back on the internet. And when they do, it's a year, 2 years later. Oh, is it safe to come back on? I didn't want to say anything. I've upset the mighty John Cedars. It's a disgrace. And this is one of the messages I wanted to get across to people for the archive. If you are one of those people that wants to get to know him, fine. That's it. It's a free world. Get to know him. But be very, very cautious of the fact that he can turn in a heartbeat.
At least don't expect him to be able to keep it secret. Don't be able to expect if he can do something for his own personal glory. If he can capitalize off of you for his glory, he's going to do that. So just keep that in mind with your interactions with him.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an unfortunate thing to think about when you're actually communicating with someone. How much of this is going to be spread around the internet?
I want you guys to know right now that a couple of years ago when me and him had the beef that started with me just asking a question, a very rational question, but when he was blowing up on Facebook about Mike and Kim accusing him of being a child molester and stuff, which never happened. And I was just saying, hey, wait a minute. I was asking some very reasonable questions, and at the time, man, I'm just friends with everybody. I love John Cedars. And he turns on me, right? And we had a spat, right? It got pretty dang ugly, right? I sent him, I think, at least 2 emails. And I remember telling him, I was like, John, look, this is stupid. This is unnecessary. This is a waste of energy. I told him that I would rather be in the trenches next to him, shooting at the watchtower from the same side than be shooting at each other. I told him, and you know what he responds? He told me that he called my email sanctimonious. Right? Twice I tried to bury the hatchet with this guy. Twice I tried to extend the olive branch, and every time he just shuts me down, and he basically says that I'm dishonest in what I was. Oh, what are my motivations? Like, I don't get that mentality for a second, and so that's it for. That's just my story. That's my interactions with him. I wasn't honest.
You're talking to a brick wall, Joel. When he gets like that, he will not admit he's ever wrong, and if he does, it's not sincere. And then he comes back at you the following day, and then he gets rid of you. So there is no reasoning with a guy like this.
Look, I want everybody seeing this to know that, the XJW community, we're going to look out for our own. And don't let any of this stuff distract you from making a video and telling your story.
And that was the other thing you did mention ages ago, that the XJW community doesn't exist. He did a video and he said, I'm sorry to tell you that there is no community.
Who is this guy?
But then he mentions the community next time he did the video.
Basically, that's subliminally telling them, don't bother making friends with other XJW.
We were gutted when he did that. Exactly, yes. And that really gutted us, because I was thinking...
And again, that goes along with the manipulation tactics that he used, that he learned as an elder with his Jehovah's Witnesses. I mean, look, I'm not going to say that he is a Watchtower operative. However, okay, if he was, how could you tell the difference?
Well, that's a question that a lot of people are now asking, and many people that he would be surprised some of his so-called closest allies are asking, because he's doing things like don't get involved in activism. It's too aggressive.
You can do it, but it has to be on
his terms. And don't get involved with that. Don't get involved with this. Don't get involved in that. And you suddenly look at exactly what he is. Don't get involved with the charity commission. It's a waste of time. And you think, wow, what on earth? Where is all this coming from? What sort of activist are you, John Cedars? Really?
Look, here's the thing. And I'm going to say this. I think I'm being very objective here. Is that whatever he is, he's not on Team Apostate. He's not on our team. He's out for himself and his own personal glory and his own personal agenda. He's invested. He he said before he doesn't, what is it? You know, look, I just want to see the Watchtower destroyed. I want to see it put out of business so it can't screw people's lives up anymore.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see.
Mm.
And if that's your goal, then you're automatically on my team. I mean, I'm going to do everything I can to, you know, I love interacting with the other XGWs. You know, anybody who steps out and makes a video is putting one more nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
You know, a death by 1,000 cuts. You realize, Mark and Cora, we've taken over successfully social media. We've stolen YouTube. You can't even Google Jehovah's Witnesses anymore without the child molestation being one of the top results on Google.
Yeah, it's working.
Winning this fight, and we don't need any. You know, look, there's plenty of. You know, I'm not invested in any sort of personal glory. I'm just saying that we need to get together, put our minds together.
We
bring all of our collective creativity to the table, and let's smash this thing.
Exactly.
I don't care.
No.
I don't care which activist can get in front of the press. It's important that we get in front of the press.
Man, if I can help somebody else get in front of the press, that's what I want to do. But you know what? I don't see John Cedars doing that.
No. What's interesting is when you look at everything, and when we've had conversations with him in the past, for example, Happy Apostates. I was sat on my bedroom floor doing my makeup when Mark was on the internet, and I said, wouldn't it be great if we did a Happy Apostates video with, I've still got all of the emails and the conversation that Mark was doing. Cora just had an idea. I said, Google, send a message to John Cedars and say, what about if we do an activist video
I
of
was
Happy
familiar
Apostates?
with this,
Yeah, and yet he took it as his idea. I was just having that same conversation with my wife, and I'm like, really? But it doesn't matter. It's not about who does it or whose idea it is, but he does like to pinch ideas and give them. The video he did on 607 BCE actually was, the information was from Raymond Franz. And
how much of that was plagiarized?
Yeah,
I mean, it's making out
but it made it out like he did a lot of research.
Yeah.
He didn't. He got all that information from people who'd already done the research.
So guys, you know, thanks for joining me. This is I love this new streaming broadcast thing. I think I've found my new niche when it comes to
You've got your
whole
niche.
thing.
Yeah, you're good.
You know, I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about better, you know, more positive and upbuilding things later.
Positive
Look,
things.
this guy is a Lilliputian. He's not as smart as he thinks he is. Okay?
No, he's not.
And he deserves this. Look, there's only one way to deal with a bully, and that's you got to get in his face and call him out.
You got to expose him.
Yeah.
You know?
And we've sat back and watched far too long and said nothing.
Too many people have got
and
there.
we kept quiet.
You know, I didn't
involved.
understand that, but it's like, look, I get it. You guys are looking at the activism from a much more professional standpoint. Like, I'm a very blue collar activist. You know, like and you guys, it seems like, you know, you keep it on the up and up, and you keep it nice and professional. You are the type of activist that a journalist is going to see and take seriously. And, you know, everybody has a role to play.
Absolutely, everyone does.
We have to realize that, look, we are all on the same team. We all want the same thing. And this whole division, whatever you want to call it, within the XGW community is artificial, and the responsibility rests at the feet of John Cedars alone. And he owes everybody a giant apology. He really does.
Yeah.
But you're never going to get the same as Watchtower. Watchtower does the same. Watchtower owes everyone an apology as well, and we're never going to see one from them either.
I just want people to be conscious of the fact that you stay free.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Stick together. And when you see bullying taking place, then you stand up and fight it, because
you're free as the cult. Why would you want to go back to that kind of a mentality?
Don't need it anymore.
And if you can't say things to people's faces if they're your friends, and still have them remain friends, and they weren't friends in the first place.
They were never friends.
I love you guys. You guys are awesome.
Love you too, Joel.
Love you too, Joel.
Keep up what you're doing. Let's not ever give up this fight.
No.
I know you are too. Eventually, we're going to be able to see this thing burn down, and we're going to dance on the grave of the Watchtower.
Yeah, we've got them on the ropes. We need to keep them there now.
Yeah.
Keep them there.
One brick at a time.
Everybody, thanks for watching our video.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody. Wherever you are.
Good night, all right? All right, we're going to turn the button off right now.